All right, good morning, everyone. So we're going to start today with a short presentation about the Women and Girls Fund grant opportunity. We're recording the presentation so that we can share it out afterwards with those who are unable to join this morning, and then we'll dive into a more informal Q&A session, at which point we'll stop the recording. Some tips for today's conversation: please keep yourself on mute during the presentation section. You can turn on closed captioning by using the live transcript button, which is at the bottom on your toolbar. If questions arise during the presentation, feel free to type them into the chat box, and I'll be happy to answer them afterwards. So we start all of our presentations with a quick overview of who we are at the Cape Cod Foundation for those who are new to us. I know a lot in here aren't new to us, so sorry, but you get to learn about the Cape Cod Foundation again. We are Barnstable County's community foundation. For those who are unfamiliar with the community foundation model, this means that we essentially act as a charitable trust for Cape Cod. We work with donors to build assets and to create charitable funds, many of which are invested and pooled together. And then we distribute those dollars back into the community through grants and scholarships. We were founded as a charitable organization back in 1989 with $10,000, and we now manage assets around $100 million. And since our inception, we have distributed over $90 million into the community through grants and scholarships. To date, we're working with 330, actually over 330 individual charitable funds, and no two are alike. Our staff of 10, 14 board members, and over 100 volunteer committee members and reviewers fuel our grant making and scholarship efforts. You're here today because of the launch of one of our newest funds, the Fund for Women and Girls. This fund is governed by an advisory committee and a grants committee, which is comprised of volunteers who are deeply involved in the community and who are invested in fostering a brighter future for women and girls across our region. So if you attended the fund launch a few weeks back, you'll have a strong sense of why the Women and Girls Fund exists and our mission. If you didn't attend that fund launch, I would encourage you to watch the recording of that presentation just to get a fuller sense of the need and the purpose for this fund. During that presentation, our president and CEO, Kristen O'Malley, shared that less than 2% of funding across the country is directed towards nonprofits that specifically support women and girls. And that's according to the Women in Philanthropy, Women and Girls Index of 2021. As we all know, women and girls have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, so needs in those communities continue to increase. This fund will enable us to raise collective resources, unite and amplify our voices around transformational community solutions. We believe that we can expand our impact by working together. To that end, the mission of the fund is to strengthen the lives of women and girls here in Barnstable County through grant making and providing resources that redress systemic inequities that oppress women and girls and that limit their opportunities. Our vision is for a Cape Cod community where all women and girls thrive and lead empowered lives in a just and equitable society. Grant making is a key activity of our fund because it's through grant making that we can support our region's most effective organizations and collaborations, and that we'll be able to live out our mission and work towards that very grand and important vision. The intent of this fund is not to provide programming or to compete with work that is already ongoing in our community. Like all of our other funds, this fund is a vehicle for collective and sustained giving around a community vision. It's an opportunity to amplify and enhance effective solutions and a chance to forge new partnerships, maybe get creative and take some risks, all in the pursuit of a community where women and girls can really flourish. Our grant making priorities for this year are listed right on the slide. In our first year of grant making, we'll focus on activities that endeavor to break the cycle of poverty by increasing economic opportunity and self-sufficiency for women through training and through educational opportunities. We're also going to focus on activities that break down barriers for girls by providing new, expanded, or more accessible educational opportunities, out-of-school programs, and mentorship opportunities. These priorities were selected among a list of additional recommendations that the fund has developed, and that came after a period of very intensive and community-informed research, which you would have seen if you attended the fund launch. While these are our priorities for this year, just want you to keep in mind that these might not always be our grant-making priorities. We anticipate that after our first year of proposal review, of community conversations and grant making, we'll learn quite a bit more about community need, particularly after meeting with organizations who are on the front lines working with women and girls every day. So all of you. Please also keep in mind that you are welcome to submit any proposal that is a benefit to women and girls in our region, but we do anticipate that this is going to be a quite competitive process, and proposals that achieve one or both of these priority areas will be prioritized by the committee. So next we're talking about our values. So there are a handful of values that are just absolutely central to the development of the Women and Girls Fund. These are values that arose through our research and that will be key components of our grant making as well. A few values that we'd like to call out for this year's grant opportunity are accessibility, cultural responsibility, and collaboration. When we talk about accessibility, we're using the term quite broadly. We're referring to proposals that increase access to existing services or that ensure new services are accessible to all. Examples could be transportation to programming is provided, or ensuring that programming is centrally located so that women and girls can easily access it. You may also consider and address financial barriers to services that might otherwise impede women from accessing your programming. You could also consider how programming could be designed so that it's more accessible to all. For example, women and girls with disabilities or with impaired mobility, women who are working multiple jobs and might be constrained for time, single mothers, grandmothers who are raising their grandchildren, those who are homebound or seniors. There's just so many different populations that we should consider when developing more equitable services. The next area is cultural responsibility. So this is ensuring that your activities respect, promote, and respond to cultural diversity. Such programs are culturally competent and may include material translation in multiple languages. It could include outreach that's conducted in a culturally responsive manner and in multiple languages, or having staff or leadership that reflect and can communicate with the communities that you're serving, or volunteers that can communicate with the communities you're serving too. We are a diverse community on Cape Cod. Women, girls, and families from across the globe call our little sandbar home, and we believe that programming across the region should be reflective and responsive to all communities here in Barnstable County. Finally, collaboration is key to successful proposals for the Women and Girls Fund. I can't stress this enough. We will prioritize proposals that incorporate partnerships with peer agencies to leverage strengths and streamline services. We encourage cross-sector partnerships, so that could include nonprofits partnering with the public or private sectors. We are not looking for organizations to duplicate already existing services or reinvent the wheel. We're just so fortunate here to have a wealth of effective and experienced organizations and entities across a number of sectors. So proposals that build bridges and forge collaborations rather than duplicate or replicate already existing services will be the strongest. I'd like to highlight one element of our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and social justice. Our grants are intended to support all women and girls on Cape Cod, but we are particularly focused on work that supports low income, BIPOC, so Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and marginalized or underrepresented women and girls. Our committees are strongly encouraging for proposals from organizations whose leadership, staff, board, and volunteers reflect these communities. All right, so what can you apply for? Our goal is to be less prescriptive about the type of proposal you submit. So we will accept many types of proposals, from proposals that are focused on programming and services that are tried and true and just need to be enhanced or amplified, to those that are newer and might have been developed in response to an unmet need. We will provide grants to organizations who are also embarking on capacity building efforts that will enable them and the community to better serve women and girls. So that's capacity building in a way that will help your organization to better serve our priority communities. This could also include a capacity building collaboration between multiple entities. Please know that operational costs, administrative costs, and overhead costs that are essential components of enabling an organization to better serve women and girls can be incorporated as part of your proposal. All proposals should incorporate the priorities and value areas that I highlighted previously as much as you can. Interestingly, I had a conversation with a potential applicant a few days ago who asked me about the scope of the proposals. And she wasn't really referring to the dollar amount, but she was really talking about the vision for the proposal. So for example, could a grant be used towards like strategy costs or planning costs for a larger future vision? So my response was that we want organizations to think big, and we want to hear about all of these ideas, these big ideas that could shape our grant making in the future. But at this stage, we won't fund proposals that are just entirely planning or relationship development in nature. So in other words, they should have, all proposals should have an achievable outcome within a year of the award. That outcome could be programmatic or service-based in nature, like we will serve 20 girls through this out-of-school program, or it could be capacity building in nature, like we will hire a consultant or a member of staff who will ensure that our programming is culturally competent and will build bridges between organizations so we can all better serve women and girls in a specific service area. I hope that makes sense. So, strategy and long-term vision planning, I think, is something that we'd love to hear about and love to stay connected with. But for this year of grant making, we are hoping that all proposals will have an achievable outcome within year one. We also, so for dollar amounts, how much are we talking here? We anticipate that grants from the fund in year one will be between $10,000 and $20,000 per organization. And we will provide a total of $50,000 out into the community for our first year of grant making. So if you just do that math, it means that we likely won't have more than 3 or 5 grantees in total. So we do encourage you to think as big as you can within the scope of these guidelines, to think about those collaborations, priority areas, and values, because all of that will make your proposal stand out. Process and timeline. So we're piloting a multi-pronged process here because we anticipate that there will be a lot of community interest in this grant opportunity. If you're familiar with the Foundation's targeted capacity building program, then you'll see that this kind of follows that same pattern. We have a short and simple LOI form, which is due on November 10th. That form is available through our online grant management system. And I will speak more about that in just a second. Then the grants committee, after all the LOIs are submitted, will review and evaluate the letters of interest. They'll select a handful of organizations to submit a full proposal. We're really hoping to narrow that down with the LOI process so that there's a small handful of organizations that will be invited to submit a full proposal, because we want to be respectful of everyone's time, and we want to hone in on the projects that best align with the fund. In some cases, organizations who have similar proposals or are talking about similar trends, community needs, or outcomes could be connected with one another to learn if a collaboration or a collaborative application is possible. Organizations will learn if they have been invited to submit a full proposal around December 15th. That proposal will be more comprehensive than the LOI and could actually include a conversational component with members of the committee in the weeks leading up to the final application deadline. And that full application deadline is January 19th, 2023. Organizations should learn about their success around February 20th. So it will be a busy winter for all of us. Our hope is that we will develop a very close relationship with our grantees during the grant year. And that could include a component where grantees are brought together a few times for peer learning with one another, some thought leadership, and really to give our committee feedback as we continue to develop our grant making program. All right, so I'm happy now to talk about the LOI itself. As I mentioned, it's not a letter. Don't send a handwritten letter in the mail to us or anything like that. It is a short form that's available in our online grant management system. If your organization already has a profile with the Foundation's online grant management system, you do not need to create a new one for this process. You can just log in and use the apply page right when you've logged in. Please contact me if you're not sure about how to access our online grant system, if you don't know how to apply, or if you aren't sure whether or not your organization already has a profile with us. Once you have logged in, take care to ensure that you're submitting the correct grant application. We have several opportunities available right now, and it can get a little confusing. For simplicity, I'll say that this grant opportunity is actually listed first on the apply page, and it's the first little blue apply button that you'll see. We have experienced a number of times when people have applied for the wrong process, and that can always get a bit messy. So you'll know it's the right one if you see our little marketing stuff right here. It's all the same marketing, and press that blue apply button that you see first on the page. Once you have clicked apply, you will complete the fields that are listed here on this slide. So first you'll share the name of the project and then the dollar amount that you're requesting specifically from the Women and Girls Fund. We're also asking for the total project cost. So that might mean that the cost of your entire project exceeds the amount that you're requesting from the Women and Girls Fund. We will also ask for just that bottom line of the organization's operating budget. So we're not asking for an actual attachment, just your bottom line, your most recent organization budget would be perfect. And let me know if you have any questions about what that means. The next question is population served by this project. And there are some sub-questions there to help guide your response. So my suggestion is that your responses should include a description of those you plan to serve. And that could include any demographic information that you can provide. And that's based on what you already collect, what you know from experience, or what you anticipate what your target population is. We also ask that you share approximately how many people you anticipate will be served by this project. I know that can be a little bit tricky when we're talking about sort of capacity building projects, but any sort of general information you can share about who will be impacted and about how many people you anticipate would be impacted would be fantastic. We really acknowledge, and the committee really stress this, that some projects could touch the lives of many women and girls, while others might have a really deep impact on fewer women and girls. That's all okay. Just make sure that you're sort of describing that in your letter of inquiry. We'll also ask how your programming is accessible and equitable to all that you serve within the population description. So that's one of the sub-questions, is how is your programming going to be accessible and equitable for this population that you're describing here? That will help our committee to identify that the population your proposal is intending to benefit is also in line with the population that the fund is looking to support. So the next question is geography. It's just a list of the different towns, our 15 towns on the Cape. This will help ensure that our grant making is distributed across the region as best as possible. So please check the boxes of all towns where you anticipate participants will come from or where your services will be provided. This is in relation to this specific proposal, not in relation to the organization generally, with the caveat that if you're submitting something that's more capacity building in nature, you might sort of just look at the geographies that you serve currently, and maybe even your capacity building application is about expanding to a new geography. If, again, there are any questions on that, please let me know. This next question is about community and organizational need. So here you'll share why your project is needed by the community. What are the challenges that you're addressing and why is it important? So why do women and girls need this project, this effort? If your project relates to capacity building or sort of operational type requests, you can explain why this project is essential to your organization's ability to better serve women and girls across our region. And your response to this question will help us determine whether the community need that you identify is also reflective of the research our team has conducted and our intentions. We anticipate that we will learn a lot from these responses that could help shape our grant making into the future. The next question is project description. So we'll ask that you include as full of a project description as you can at this stage, including the anticipated timeline and organizations that you plan to collaborate with to make this all a reality. We'll also ask how you incorporate key values that we've highlighted within your project. Your responses to this question will help the committee determine whether the project is a fit within our priority areas and in line with the mission and core values of the fund. The final question is impact. So you may consider how your project will impact women and girls on Cape Cod, and that might include that sort of quantitative and qualitative information on the number of women you plan to impact, and then really the depth of that impact. We are also looking for information related to that wider community impact. So not only how will the lives of the women that you're serving change, but how do you anticipate our community as a whole might change because of this effort? and what promise does that work hold for the future? So an example is this a new model that could be replicated by other organizations? Does the future hold maybe including new partners as you develop your model? Your answers to this question will help us prioritize the highest impact proposals and proposals with an intended impact that are in line with the vision of our fund. Just want to say here before I move over, we provide a really generous character count for all of our applications at the foundation. It's about 2,000 characters for each of these sections. Just know that you don't need to complete all 2,000 characters. Our intention isn't for this to be cumbersome or too intensive, but we do provide ample space because we know it's very frustrating if you are trying to reduce what you're saying into limited character counts. And if you do have a problem with the character counts, if you have more to say, feel free to reach out to me and we'll maybe be creative and think about how we can help you slim down and all that good stuff. All right, so a few tips on the LOI and application generally. It's our intention to make this proposal as accessible as possible. That's why we're having an info session. We also have Google Translate enabled on our applications across the foundation. So that will help you translate the form into another language, your preferred language, if that's helpful for you. I encourage you to schedule a quick conversation with me before applying if you do have any lingering questions or want further assistance or to think things through. All applicants are welcome to have a 1-hour technical assistance call, is what we're calling it, before submitting an LOI. And that could include general brainstorming, like, is this LOI a fit for the Women and Girls Fund? It could also be more technical questions with using the grant system, or just general sort of proposal development support and how to consider specific questions that we've asked. In some cases, you may wish to include supplemental materials along with your LOI. This happens from time to time. If you think that a supplemental material is essential to the success of your LOI, please write to me. When I say this, we're not talking about like an annual report or marketing materials or brochures, but what could be appropriate is like a letter of support for services provided within a school, for example, to demonstrate that the school is aware of the effort and very supportive, very behind it. It could also include a letter of partnership between multiple agencies to exemplify that your proposal will be done in tangent together and both parties are committed to that. I would encourage you to reach out to me to discuss this. If one of the steps of our proposal review, whenever something comes in, I take a quick look at it and just say, okay, this makes sense. And in some cases where there could be a partnership like that, that's essential to the proposal being successful and being effective, then I might call or write to you to request that kind of supplemental material anyway. So just be thinking about that when you submit the application. And if you do have any supplemental materials, just contact me and see if it's appropriate to send them along. Finally, we see this as an opportunity to build collaborations, trial new solutions, and expand or enhance programming that you already know is effective. So to reiterate, we would love for organizations to be forward thinking, to think big and in line with a strong vision for the future for women and girls, but to also submit proposals that have concrete outcomes by the end of the grant year. And if you have questions on that sort of scope, please let me know. Last slide, contact information is available here if you have questions. All information about the fund is available on the website, and the best way to access grant making information is by clicking on the receive button on our website, which is in like that top toolbar. Then click grants, then click discretionary grants, and then select the Women and Girls Fund. On that page, the application link is available, so you can submit your LOI there by pressing the apply here button. Our guidelines are available, which go into all of this in sort of fuller detail. My contact information, and then some general resources for grant making and submitting your proposal. So that is my story. That's it. I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you to all who have watched this recording, and now we'll sort of dive into to Q&A.